In this video, I am going to discuss Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. First, let us discuss what is called negotiable instrument. Negotiable instrument means a piece of paper in writing entitling a right to holder a certain sum of money, that is, for example, check, demand draft, promissory note, bill of exchange. All these are different types of negotiable instruments under this act. So now let us discuss basically the important three types of or three kinds of negotiable instruments. First is called promissory note. It is also otherwise called pro note. Promissory note, it is an instrument in writing containing unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay certain sum of money as such a certain sum of money to the bearer of the instrument. That is called promissory note. That means in this a person promised to pay certain sum of money to a particular person. So it is containing an unconditional undertaking. There is no condition to that. So this is called an unconditional undertaking paper. So this is called promissory note. Let us discuss now what are the essentials ingredients to constitute a promissory note. First is called date of execution. There must be a specific date that must be mentioned in the promissory note to be for execution. Second is place where to be executed. The place must be specifically mentioned in that promissory note where it is to be executed. Then thirdly, what is the sum of money involved? The sum of money must be categorically mentioned. That money must have been advanced. Next is name of the parties. So definitely the name of the party is very much essential who will transact that promissory note. The parties are called promisor or you can say debtor, and the other party is called promisee or creditor. So debtor and creditor are two parties in any promissory note. There must be a debt by one party and the one party must have lent the properties. He is called creditor. So creditor and debtor both are very much essentials for a promissory note. Now let us discuss the other type of negotiable instrument, that is called bill of exchange. It means it is a paper in writing which ensures payment of certain sum of money which has been taken on debt. So there is a guarantee, a particular sum of money that ensures a party for recovery of money which was taken as a debt. Now let us discuss what are the very much essentials of a bill of exchange. First is there must be three parties in any bill of exchange. First party is called who draws the bill is called drawee. That means the person who executes that bill of exchange is called drawee or drawer. Second party is called who accepts the bill, who is called drawee. And third party to whom the money is payable, he is called payee. So definitely in all bill of exchange, involvement of three parties must be there: drawer, drawee and payee. If these three parties are there, then definitely that document is called a bill of exchange. So what are the essentials? Now let us discuss some of the essential points relating to bill of exchange. First is called it must be in writing. The bill of exchange must be executed in writing. Second, it must contain an order to pay. There must be a conditional order to pay certain sum of money. So the involvement of three parties are there. Already now we have discussed drawer, drawee and payee. And what is the sum payable in certain? So the certainty of this, the payment is whatever the money that will be paid, that is certain sum of money. So now already we have discussed promissory note and bill of exchange. Now let us distinguish these two. Promissory note, how it distinguishes with the bill of exchange. Promissory note, here always two parties are there. The maker is one party, the other party is called payee. But in case of all bill of exchange, you will get always three parties: drawer, drawee and payee. So in case of promissory note, only two parties are there. Who make the document is called maker, and the person who will get the money is called payee. The second point is the maker who is executing the document, that promissory note, definitely he is a debtor. So maker is also otherwise called debtor in case of this promissory note. But in the in the case of bill of exchange, the maker is definitely the person who has lended money. The maker is called creditor. So here the difference is the debtor and creditor. The third essential point is, in case of promissory note, it is an unconditional promise. The promise is unconditional. There is no condition attached to that promise. That is called promissory note. But in case of bill of exchange, it is a unconditional order. In the earlier case, it is a unconditional promise. In the latter case, in case of this bill of exchange, it is a order. So unconditional order. So these are three basic differences between the promissory note and bill of exchange. Now let us discuss the third negotiable instrument. That document is called check. Already everybody is transacting check transaction. What is the meaning of this term check? Check is a special kind of bill of exchange. It is definitely one kind of bill of exchange because the three parties involvement is here. So it is a special kind of bill of exchange. It is a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker. That is the only important ingredient in case of a check. The bill of exchange that must be drawn in a specified banker. So here, what are the main essentials of this check? First is drawn on a specified banker. This is first essential ingredient of this check. It must be drawn in a specified or specific banker. The second important ingredient is payable on demand. On demand, then only check will be drawn. So it is called payable on demand. So it is second important essential ingredient. Third ingredient, it must be dated. There must be a specific date must be mentioned at the top of the right top of the check. That's so it must be specifically dated. That means from the date of that whatever that is mentioned at the top, the check must be encased or it must be utilized within 3 months from the date of whatever the date is mentioned at the top. And the last point is it must be properly signed. That means the person who is making or who is drawer of this check, he must sign properly. So these are four important ingredients, or these are very much essentials of a check. So these are some of the important three types of the negotiable instruments: promissory note, bill of exchange and check. Now let us discuss something regarding this check. Crossing of check. There are two types of crossing. Crossing means two parallel transverse line will be given in the left corner of a check. That is called crossing of check. So two types of crossings are there. One is called general crossing. Second is called special crossing. So in case of crossing of check, it is a process by which drawer directs his banker to make payment through bank account and not through bank counter. So it is a specific direction by the drawer to pay the money through bank account, not through the bank account and not through the bank counter. So this is the basic difference. And if two transverse lines is given, that is called general crossing. And if in this line something is mentioned to whom that will be payable, that is called special crossing. So two types of crossings are there, general and special. So these are three important negotiable instrument documents in case of this Negotiable Instrument Act 1981. Then now we will discuss two important things. A person who is holding the check is called holder in due course. So now we will come across two terms. One is called holder and second is called holder in due course. Holder, that is specifically mentioned in section 8 of this act. Holder of negotiable instrument means any person entitled to his own name to the possession through the possession thereof to recover amount due. That is called holder of check. And holder in due course means when he has got a good title and he is in privileged position to hold the same, that is called holder in due course. When a check is given to a person, so that means that person is in holding the check for a specified time or for a specific period. So that person is called holder in due course. So these are two very important words used in holder and holder in due course relating to this Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Now let us come to, these are the theoretical aspect of this Negotiable Instrument Act. Now let us come to the practical aspect. Suppose a person he draws a check. Subsequently, it was found to be bounced or it was dishonored. Then what are the remedies available under law? That starts from section 138 till last of section, that is around section 148 of this act. So now let us discuss Section 138, that is called dejour of check for insufficient of fund in the account. So what is the meaning of this term? Once a check is presented, if the whatever the money that is mentioned in the check, if that sufficient money is not given, not there in the account of the person, then the check will be bounced. So that bouncing of check is otherwise called dejour of check. So when a check is drawn by a person on an account maintained by him to another person for discharge of his debt or other liability in part or in full, or if returned insufficient fund or for excess arrangement, in that case it is called a check is bounced or check is dejoured. For that, punishment prescribed under this statutory law, that is called, it may exceed up to 2 years of imprisonment or with fine which may extend to twice the amount of check or both. So the punishment is very rigorous in this case. The punishment, because it is having penal liability nowadays. Section 138 has got very prime importance under this act. In this case, the provision punishment is 2 years imprisonment and fine which may extend up to twice the amount of the check. Suppose your check is amounting to 1 lakh rupees. In that case, the fine may go up to 2 lakh rupees. That is the discretion given to the magistrates. And all the cases are triable by this magistrate first class of judicial court. Then, now let us say, what are the binding term and conditions for presentation of a check? The first point is, the check must be presented within 3 months from the date on which it was mentioned at the top corner of the check. So that means the presentation time is 3 months from the date on which it is mentioned at the top. That is called presentation of the check within 3 months. Second important is from the receipt of bounce. 30 days the notice period. Suppose a check is bounced and that when the endorsement has come from the bank that the check is bounced, when this endorsement was received by the person, he has to serve notice on the drawer within 30 days from the date of receipt of the regarding the bouncing of check. So 30 days time period that is stipulated under the act after receipt of this bouncing of check endorsement from the court. So that is called from the bank. So that is called 30 days time period. So this is called notice period. So after this 30 days, notice is sent, and from the date of when the notice was received, this notice is sent under section 138B of this NI Act. Once, and in that notice 15 days time is given. After expiry of this 15 days time, within 30 days the party has to lodge or has to file his case, because the cause of action accrued only after completion of 30 days, because that 30 days is a waiting period, so that the party was given a chance to pay the money, the check money, and if he is not availing that and that 15 days is gone, then from 16th day the cause of action accrues to file the case, and from that 16th day again within 30 days the case has to be filed. So these are the certain backgrounds and theories relating to the presentation of check. 3 months period and 30 days notice, then 15 days waiting period, then another 30 days for filing of check. So if there is any statutory deviation, then definitely the party is going to lose his case. But in case suppose a person could not file the case within statutory time, so the delay condonation provision is also there. If he satisfies the court for sufficient reason, he was prevented to file the case in proper time, in that case the delay can be condoned, provided he has to satisfy the court this is the reason. So there is a provision of the filing of this case, the delay condonation provision. So these are so important aspect of section 138. Now let us come to presumption in favor of the holder, that is called section 139 of this act. So this section relating to only presumption in favor of the holder. Once a person is holding a check, that means he is called holder in due course or holder of a check. So what is the presumption? Court may presume, it shall be the presumed unless contrary is proved, the holder of check received the check for any debt or other liability. So this presumption is relating to holding of check for certain debt or other liability. That means once a person is holding a check, it will be presumed under 139 of this act that there is a debt, any sort of debt or any other liability. That means if these two things are fulfilled, then the presumption can be given taken by the court. So this is very important aspect of law regarding the presumptive power of the court. So presumption can also be drawn. Once a check is drawn, then definitely there will be presumption that there is a liability. He owes certain liability. So this debt and other liability is very much important essence of section 139 under this Negotiable Instrument Act. Then there are another provision relating to offences by the companies. Section 141 specifically provides what are the, if any offence is committed by the companies, then what will be the course of action. That means any person who at the time of commission of offence was in charge and was responsible to the company for conduct of business. So these words are very important aspect of law relating to any person who was in charge. First of all, the person must be charged. He may be director, assistant director, or any person who must be in charge. Second aspect, he was responsible to the company for conduct of business. That means that person must be directly responsible to the conduct of business. And thirdly, he shall be there must be certain authority that he shall be penalized under law if he was directly responsible to the affairs of the company and he has drawn a check, he shall be deemed to be guilty of the offence. So if the person is directly responsible and his person is in charge of the company in day-to-day affairs of the company, that if any check is drawn by that man, he shall be deemed to be, if that check is bounced, then he shall be deemed to be guilty under this section under 138. So these are section 141 relating to offences by companies. So many companies are also involved if they have contravened this provision. But one thing you have to remember, once you are going to file a case against any company, making this director or any other person who is responsible to the affairs of the company must be arrayed as a party. Without arraying the party, company, the case is not maintainable. That is given under Anita Hoda case reported from High Court and Supreme Court, that is confirmed by the Supreme Court that once the case is going to be filed, the company must be arrayed as a accused number 1. Without arraying a company, the case is not maintainable. Simply if a person files a case against the directors or other person, there is every chance that there is losing the case. So this is relating to section 141 offences by the companies. Then this act stipulates under section 142 of the Act cognizance of the offences. That means once a case is filed, a complaint case is filed, that will be numbered, then magistrate will take cognizance. So once magistrate will take cognizance, he has to comply all these 3 provisions. That means all the statutory compliance must be there. There must be, check must be drawn within the stipulated time, and within this it was presented to the bank, it was bounced by the bank, then statutory notice was sent. After completion of notice period of 15 days, the party could not pay the money. So if all these things are complied, then a complaint case will be maintainable before the court. Once all these things are complied, the court will take cognizance of the offence under section 138 of NI Act. So this is related to cognizance of offence. So the courts, the JMFC, are competent enough to take cognizance of offence under this act if all these paraphernalia are complied and all the statutory things are complied, then only court will take cognizance. Once court is taking cognizance of the offence, then definitely the hearing will be taken up and ultimately judgment will be delivered after in following the due as per the terms and conditions given under this act. So this is relating to cognizance. Now let us come to another very important provision, section 145 of this statutory act, that relates to evidence on affidavit. That means the parties, whoever going to lead evidence to save the time of the court, the provision of the party can lead evidence through affidavit. That means evidence on affidavit. Whatever evidence he want to adduce before the court, he has to furnish the affidavit that must be prepared, and that affidavit will be submitted by the court. So that affidavit will be treated as evidence. So there is a provision, specific provision under this act relating to this submission of evidence in shape of or in the form of affidavit, that is as per section 145 of this act. Now we will come to the last aspect of this act, that is relating to section 147, offence to be compoundable. So and this is given as per the Amendment Act of 2003. So this came into force from on 6th February 2003. After this, all the offences under this act have been made compoundable. That means if the parties they intend to compound or compromise their dispute, both the parties can file a case, file a petition for withdrawal of the case. If the matter is settled, the parties have been paid accordingly and it has been settled by the parties, they can compound. So there is a specific provision under this act to compound the offence under section 147 of the act. That means at that time, if a party wants to compound, the complainant has to file a petition under section 257 of CRPC so that the case will be compounded and case will be withdrawn. After compounding, the case will be withdrawn. So there is a specific provision given under this act relating to compounding of offences. That means all the offences, different types of offences under this act are made compoundable as per this amendment 2003 amendment. Then coming to last portion of this negotiable, that is relating to section 148, power of appellate court to order payment. Minimum 20% of fine or compensation awarded by the trial court. That is the statutory law relating to this section 148. Once a person is going to file a appeal, the person who agreed by the order will file appeal before the appellate court. Once he is going to file the appeal, he has to pay minimum 20% of the fine amount or compensation awarded on the trial court. So that is the statutory provision as per section 148. Then only the appeal will be maintainable, appeal will be admitted in the court, and after that, after deposit of this amount, 20% amount, then appeal will be admitted, then the appeal will be taken up as per in due process of the provision of appeal. So at that time, so it will be decided if there is merits, there are good grounds in favor of the appellant, then definitely appeal will be allowed and the order of the lower court will be set aside. And if the grounds are not complying in terms or in consonance of law as per provision of this, as per different sections of this act, then definitely appeal will be dismissed. So these are some of the important aspects of law relating to Negotiable Instrument Act, now 1881. Nowadays, due to this transaction of different parties through checks, this law is taking much more prior importance nowadays because and it is made penalized under law. Previously, there was no provision of this penal provision, but after amendment, all this new provision, that means different types of penal provision has come into operation. That's why nowadays the courts are taking very strict view over this act and the cases are being taken up in different types of court. So these are some of the important aspects of this Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. With this, I am closing this chapter under this new act, NI Act 1881.